Order. Motion to approve the agenda. Yeah.
You want to be quiet?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Was approved. At this time, we ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes if there are no additions or corrections.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. At this point, we'll ask for any public comments at this time. Is there anybody that would like to address the MPO with any public comments? Hearing none. Are there any questions or comments on the consent items, financial statements, water trails, or MPO office lease? Hearing none.
Hearing none. I'll move, Your Honor.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. At this time, we'll move to presentations, reauthorization overview and update. Dylan?
Thank you. We had scheduled for AMPO, the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, to be on, and I don't believe they're on right now, to be on to give us an update on all things transportation reauthorization, and kind of the intent to do this prior to a lot of us going to DC here in a few weeks. Earlier this week, and we'll talk about this later, there was a transportation bill introduced in the House, and today is the markup. So they are busy watching all the committee, participating in those hearings and watching all of that, which I think is a better use of their time to give us updates. So if they jump on, they said they might be able to make it. So if they jump on, we can go to them, but otherwise we'll just skip this and do it another.
All right. Next item, Iowa Department of Transportation Regional Projects update. Dylan?
Okay. We have with us Allison Smythe from the District 1 engineer, to give us an overview of some of the projects that they're doing. Next month, the MPO will approve the draft tip or approve the tip, and that has a lot of DOT projects in there. So we always like to hear about what they're doing, and this is a good way to help us coordinate between our two agencies for all the transportation things that are going on here. So I'll turn it over to Allison.
Surprise, right? So, as Dylan said, my name is Alex Smythe. I'm from the District 1 office at the DOT. I'm the engineer there. District 1 in general is 12 counties in central Iowa. We're in charge of the planning, construction, and maintenance of state-owned highways and interstates here in our 12 county area. And it does include the metro, obviously. We staff 309 people year round. We have another 75 or 80 in the fall for our snow fighting efforts. We have 16 maintenance garages, 3 construction residencies, a field office in Grimes, and then our District 1 office is up in Ames. So Shelby and I both work, and it's right across the street from the main DOT complex. So here's the engineering staff. I can't believe it's only been a year since I was here last. We haven't had a lot of changes here, but these are the people you might interact with. You get to work with the district office in Ames. The one big change there is Frank Leon took over as our district construction engineer this last year when Scott Nixon went over to take over the construction and maintenance bureau as the leader over there. And then Cassie Providence backfilled his position at the Grimes office. So I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the project. So the 5-year plan that the commission gives us is what's on screen there. That's for the whole district one. These are what the Highway Commission has approved for the next 5 years of funding. And then if we zoom in to Polk and Story County, you can see that the concentration of our projects really is here in the metro. So some of our projects going on right now, last year was the bulk of the work for the 141 work, plank and resurface, new asphalt from Grimes to Johnson all the way to Ranger. And along with that project, we had some safety improvements. We removed the median crossovers in 3 or 4 of those locations. We disconnected 121st Street to address some crash issues we had ongoing there. We reconnected them via an extension of 110th Street. And so now all the residents and the people on the north side can connect to 415 and 114. And up in the northeast corner over by Sailorville, Beaver and 415, we installed a new roundabout. And here is a picture of that roundabout. People are really excited. We get complimented on this roundabout, which is words I never thought I would say. But people enjoy not having to stop on the way home now. And even though this vehicle, I'm showing this one specifically because you can see that people did have to slow down, but that truck is a very long truck and it's not using the truck apron. So it did slow down, but it doesn't have to stop. And by not having to mount that truck apron there, it's able to keep going a lot faster than a lot of other roundabouts in the area. So we're really excited about that one opening up. All right, now this Northeast Mix Master. The project that's up there on the screen right now is when we connected and did the new flyover. Been open for about 1.5 years now. That was the flyover from eastbound to northbound. Flyover we opened at Thanksgiving 1.5 years ago. That part is done. And now we're working just to the east there from the Northeast Mix to the bypass. So last year we built new westbound lanes all the way across. And we put traffic there for this year. And now this year we've put eastbound traffic in the old westbound lanes. We're going to reconstruct the eastbound lanes. Next year we'll come through and that'll be the last year of the project and we'll reconstruct the center median and the median barrier route. When it's all done, we'll have a new lane in each direction, so there'll be 4 total from the Northeast Mix to the bypass. And as we all know, that's a really, really heavily traveled corridor at commute times. So that's going to be a noticeable big improvement for us there. And here's a couple of drone pictures. This one was just a couple of weeks ago when we were had just shifted traffic at the very end of April, and I'm happy to report all that pavement's gone. You can see we're looking westbound. Westbound traffic in the new lanes, and they're just getting started on the pavement removal. It's all wrong though, and they're already doing the earthwork and the widening to add the new lane. So that's exciting, especially since we're in the rainy season right now. Now this picture is eastbound, and this one doesn't really show the construction, but the main part of this project for us is not necessarily the construction, it's keeping 3 lanes of traffic open in both directions during construction. It takes almost just as much work, not quite as much money to move them, but just as much work and time and effort to get them all shifted around to where they need to be, so they can get there safely during our construction. That's just kind of a fun way to do that. And then this is the Northeast Mix Master. Someday in the future, this is the ultimate that we're building towards. Did you have a question?
I do have a question. So the exit off of I-80 here that goes south to Highway 5, that tends to be backed up quite a bit. I didn't know if there's any enhancements to that exit specifically as part of this project.
No, well, just the added lane. So there'll be 1 more lane. That is a high-speed ramp. We are all struggling to get people to take that.
Yeah, I don't know why. Human nature. So they always slow down. It always ends up you're staying on your brakes. So
Yes. We're not adding, aside from the new lane, we had lengthened it, 2 or 3 years ago, and that seemed to have helped. But yeah, that's still, right. Yeah. So this picture though is the ultimate build. And then this one would add the left exit, right? Then we still have that goes from westbound 80 to southbound on the 235 area. That last left exit would be removed and we'd add a twin flyover to what we built a couple years ago. And then we would add a 4th level flyover up, Ankeny to Davenport. And that would get rid of this slow moving loop. That would be the last project that we did. That's not programmed, that's not funded, but that's the ultimate thing that when we add projects, that's what we're working toward in the future. Okay, and then just north of there is our I-35 widening projects. We have spent the last 3 years doing the southbound lanes and the reconstruction of the 126 Elkhart exit and the Iowa 210 and Huxley exits. Those interchanges are now rebuilt and we've moved traffic, all of it is now on the southbound side so we can reconstruct the northbound lanes. And we've split all of that work into 2 projects, 2 different contractors, because we wanted to get all done this year. So by the end of construction this year, we're intended to have all of the northbound lanes paved. When we're done, this kind of a strange slide, but what it shows is it's 9 miles of 6 laning of interstate traffic, 2 new interchanges and 5 new bridges. So it feels like it's been going on forever. We're all kind of tired of this construction, but there's a reason. It really is a good project. Future projects in this area, right? The next section will be Huxley to Ames. Hard to see on the map, but we do the next section of road next year. Start southbound, then northbound from Huxley up to the Skunk River bridges where we already widened it out. And then up at Ames, the I-35 bridges over 30 would follow right after that. All right, now moving back down Metro in Ankeny, we've had our US 69 projects ongoing here for quite a bit. We've got north of First Street, all of the US 69 lanes are paved now as we have the city connection still ongoing this year. And south of First Street, we've started our utility relocations. We'll eventually be reconstructing those lanes from Southeast Peterson back up to First Street, but this first year, the impact is going to be mostly on utilities. We have some traffic impacts because of the utilities needing to move, but you're not going to see much road construction yet this year. Most of that will be next year. And then moving toward the west side of the metro, we've got our 3580 project at Hickman Road. We are starting year 2 of the construction there. Last year we did the outside lanes and the ramps. And then this year we're working on the inside lanes. Next year will be Hickman reconstructed underneath. And when we put it back as a diverging diamond interchange, right? When we cross over to the other side, help with our safety and operational issues we've been having there. 3580 will have a new lane in each direction, and so will Hickman. Hickman's 2 lanes in each direction now, and it will be 3 lanes when we're done. Here's some drone pictures from last month. They've got the pedestrian bridges that Clive and Urbandale have added these pedestrian facilities on here. And if you're gonna really look here, but you can kind of see the tunnels that connect those so that the pedestrians have a nice way across the interstate there. And then this is that same view, the same pedestrian, just from the other side of the interchange. You can kind of see how they connect up. Cross. And then if you're looking to the south at the Walnut Creek bridges, you can kind of see the grading that's happening in the middle now. And the new trail connection is getting graded here to go underneath also. South of there, starting this summer, we've got our big letting for the Southwest Mixed Master project. The main goal of this project is to get rid of the southbound to eastbound loop. I'm sure everyone here has seen the traffic. It out through that ramp a long time ago, and we get backups and operational issues at that ramp right now. So we're going to replace the loop with a 2-lane wide flyover ramp. That's it's kind of purple on the screen. It's hard to tell the color there. And then all this over here on the right and south. So eastbound and coming northbound is just the connections to that. One of the things that we found when we were studying to start the design of the project, though, is that the west side of the interchange has some operational issues. The people that want to come home in the evenings from 235, that's not from downtown, they want to move over to the right lane to get off Jordan Creek. And the people coming on 80 West that want to turn onto 80 West want to get over to the left lanes and continue on west for Omaha and Council Bluffs. So that's causing some merging issues, some Leaving issues that we're interested in maybe minimizing if we can't get rid of them altogether. So the plan for this project then is to bring the I-80 westbound lanes up and over and come in on the inside of 235. So when we're all done with that, there'll be a bridge that goes over and the 80 westbound traffic will come in on the left and won't have to merge over to the right. No, they won't have to merge to the left and 235 won't have to merge to the right. So you can kind of see what I mean here with the picture here we have. I guess our guys went out one morning and just took a picture looking east from the bridge. You could see right away the trucks are all trying to get over to the inside and the cars are all trying to get over to the outside. So hopefully moving forward that project will take care of that. Now here on Southeast 14th Street, US 69, we've got a lot of work coming up. We've got a reconstruction project on US 69 from the River Bridge up to the viaduct. It's a partnership with the Des Moines city. They're going to reconstruct the street itself and the intersection at Morris Street, change it into an offset left, put up some raised medians in the middle, and clean up the access a little bit so that traffic can flow a little bit better. Just to the south of that, we've got the Des Moines River Bridge, going to get reconstructed after that. And then finally, the Des Moines Railroad Viaduct Bridge will get constructed in 2030 and 2031. It's going to be kind of messy there for a few years, but it's going to be really a nice facelift and a lot of safety and operational fixes when we're done. So that's going to be exciting to get to talk here soon. North of Ankeny, have next year a roundabout on 69, 126, although if it's Ankeny now it's 70. So actually set, thank you. Google still says it's so I'm sorry. So that's 27 and then 28, another roundabout just north of there at 210 and Huxley. Some non-project things that the district office gets to do here in the metro. As we know, we had a couple of Iowa soldiers killed in Syria in December. And so the DOT, along with our legislative partners and some others, have designated Iowa 28, which is 63rd Street from Grand Army Post as a memorial highway. And as of sunrise tomorrow, these signs will be up and uncovered just in time for Memorial Day weekend. It's not necessarily a fun thing, but it's an honor to be able to help and participate in these sort of things. The bypass, the MPO and the DOT get to partner with investigating what it would take to turn that into an interstate. One of the things that we're doing is alongside of that, right, we're deploying some pilot project to try and help detect and communicate safety issues. One of them is slow moving vehicles. So we've recently deployed this detection system. You can see that it's really hard because it was one of our traffic cameras. This is just a shot from, but it says slow vehicle ahead on there. And what's happening in the background is our cameras out there are detecting all the vehicles as they go through. And if they find a big slow vehicle, they're detecting it, it sends an alert, and then that lights up those message boards that tells the drivers out there. So this is a new one. We also have some communications with some tractor companies. I don't have great information on that, but there's a lot of different things that we're exploring right now. And then the last one I was going to mention, this is the Iowa Interagency Training Center. This is Iowa DPS, Law Enforcement Academy, National Guard, and Iowa DOT have partnered to build this facility. It's on Camp Dodge, but it's a training center meant to help learn how to drive. For us, it would be teaching snow plows. For law enforcement, it's driving fast. For guard, I don't know. But it's a really neat project. The first one, we got to design it. And so this is the skills pad right there in the middle of the screen here. And it's basically a giant parking lot, but it's 1,200 by 800 feet. It is huge. And so this is the first phase of several phases. Eventually, when it's done, it will have a high-speed track. a bridge over the high-speed track, a roundabout, an urban break to look at tons of really good training for people to have before they're doing it in live traffic. So with that. Yes,
Allison, is Dallas County gonna come into region one or district one? We really want that to happen. Did I say something wrong?
no,
It doesn't make sense not to happen, right?
we did get to ask and invite the entire, into District 1 about a year ago. And it's on the table, that's not my decision.
Whose table was it on?
I will give you his name and number.
All right, thank you.
You can forward that,
Okay.
absolutely.
For the Southwest Mix Master on your slide, the date you had was 2026 to 2029. What is happening in 2026?
Okay, good question. We're letting the project get going. This first year, they can start building piers for the new flyover inputs. It will not impact traffic yet.
Is my question, because we got a lot going on at Hickman Road and a lot of traffic diversion right now. We're not going to have any kind of
No,
both of them.
that we are very much conscious of this. We need to have Hickman open before we're impacting traffic in there. At a minimum, enough to get traffic diverted. We are very much planning and that's been kind of driving our schedule actually, because it's messy when we're doing projects. We do communicate with the cities quite a bit, so hopefully you feel like you're informed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item is a reporting and voting item, the fiscal year 2027 Unified Planning Work Program and Budget. Gunner?
Thank you. Jill and I will take team this one, but first on behalf of MPO staff, I just want to thank the Iowa DOT. They've been phenomenal partners on the Future Pro 35 program and the low moving cameras, the latest piece of that. So thank you very much for that. Before you today is the work program for our upcoming fiscal year. You saw this in March and approved it. We've gone through some review and revision based on comments from the Iowa DOT. This is a pretty perfunctory item. Before I get into it too much, though, I want to look backwards at the current fiscal year that we're in and reflect that the projects that we set out to do in the current work plan are largely on track for completion within this fiscal year. This is something that Dylan has challenged staff to do is let's say what we're going to do and let's do it in the time to say we're going to do it. So we've been very intentional about that. I'm not going to go into depth on any of these here, but I just want to point out that we're on track to complete things we said we could do. Okay, the 27 EWP and budget. This outlines our scope of work from July 1 to 2030, to June 30, excuse me. Justifies the use of federal planning funds and communicates to you all what we are planning to do with the public money in the next year. We did submit that draft in March ahead of the April 1st deadline, and then our final back on June 1st. Not many changes from Iowa DOT. There was one place where we separated out some reporting on the grant funding for SS4A. Doesn't really change the numbers at all, just changed how they look. We added some additional detail about SS4A supplemental planning activities that we'll be doing in the coming year. Also did some clearer labeling, road copy edit level stuff. No major changes from what you saw in March. You recall that we've been intentional about trying to build our work program around the strategic direction of the organization. What you have on the screen here, I know you can't read it, but there are 4 main buckets here that talk about our 4 strategic areas. Far left is just basic operations governance. In the second column is our core planning work. And then we build out to like services to our member jurisdictions. And on the far right is our purpose-driven innovation, these are the wildly important ideas. In the next few slides, we have different projects that are occurring within each of those buckets. Again, I don't need to go through each of these individually, but here we have on the governance and operations, this is all pretty basic stuff here. The one new one that I am going to note here is that the 28E agreement and bylaws review, it is underway now. That is going to continue into the next fiscal year. again, under regional planning and federal excellence, most of these things are occurring now and are pretty routine for the MPO. The one new one that I'm going to call out here is the Brenton Slough Transportation Plan. This is the regional transportation plan that we're doing in coordination with conservation, the surrounding communities to provide regional transportation in and around the Brenton Slough, which has recently come under the ownership of Polk County Conservation. Lastly, I'll call out, these are the different areas. I have Brenton Slough on my twice. Sorry, Dylan. These are the different areas that we provide support for our member jurisdictions, anything from data forecasting, grant assistance, public meetings, etc. And then lastly, in the purpose-driven innovation category, the two new ones that I'll call out are the Grimes line. This is the abandonment proceedings that initiated this past few months. That'll continue to be a place where we invest our time as an MPO. And then the other one is the Vision Zero program. This is a part of the funding review that we've done recently, as well as SS4 grant funding. You're going to hear about both of those things in upcoming items. I'll pause here and let Dylan talk about budget. You up here on the screen, you see the budget. At the top, we have our expenditures. So that goes to salary, wages, indirect costs, and so forth. And then the bottom, the different sources of funding that we have. That includes all the federal funds, local assessments that come in, contracts, and so forth. You can see there the surplus at the end of the year is about $178,000. This is exactly the same as what you saw for the draft, so this did not change at all from in the last couple of months. If you go to the next slide, on the previous one, you saw there was about $4 million of other direct costs. This is just a breakdown of what those costs are. So this really gets more into the kind of contracts we're going to have with consultants for different studies, kind of more of the special projects that aren't everyday routine things that carry over from year to year. These are kind of usually just 1 year, one-off type of projects that we have, aside from some of the professional services like that kind of thing. And then final here, like to show this as far as where our costs and revenues are, and then that green thing on the bottom is our current reserve. That's what we have, what we forecast that out. That line going through it, the required set aside or the required reserve there. So the green is what our actual reserve is. The line in that is what we're required to have, or kind of our policy is. So you can see we're looking good. We do start to, after a couple of years where our expenditures start to outpace our revenue. This is not new. This is something that we see every year. But as we'll talk about here later on, things like reauthorization bills, different changes to federal funding, as our region grows, all of this will affect our the revenue that we bring in, which will adjust these numbers going forward. So again, this hasn't changed from what we saw last time. So with that, if there's any questions about the budget side, the content side, we're happy to take those.
Questions?
Approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is passed. Next item on the agenda is report and vote, safe streets and roads for all application development. Start with Marcus on that.
Thank you. There we go. So the notice funding opportunity for this year's Safe Streets and Roads for All grant came out March 27th. The application is due in 5 days and 30 minutes. It was about just under $1 billion. USDOT takes a little bit for administration purposes. So that's the award amount we are seeking, and the pot of money. Awards are generally considered between $2.5 to $25 million. The $25 million being the maximum. They anticipate somewhere between 40 and 70 implementation grants, but an implementation grant, what we are going to be seeking this cycle. And then the expected period of performance, 12 months, 5 years. I would say that our application is going to be on the long run with some of these construction projects. Moving on, if we look at the infrastructure projects that are what can be included in that, you can construction. The projects that we're submitting for this year fall squarely in that infrastructure projects category. So a little bit of how we got here. Last year we submitted 16 different projects, 3 packages. We had solutions package 1, which is all construction specific projects for our community. Solutions package 2 is planning related items. Solutions package 3 was a mix of planning and implementation construction projects. We were funded for last year in the solutions package 2, which is our planning projects, and then the roadway safety audits, solutions package 3, which is also planning related. We are currently working through the grant agreement process right now. FHWA has our draft grant agreement for our FY25 award. This year, we decided that the construction projects and solutions package 1 would be included in this year's project. We did not include the low-cost countermeasures because that was part of the discussion around the Vision Zero program that I think Gunnar or Dylan are going to pick up in the next item. So we're looking at these 9 projects that are also listed in your agenda packet being included in this year's application. Looking at some of the cost items, the SS4A request comes in at just under $15 million. With the other funds, including the match for the SS4A, identified by community coming in at about $13 million, so we're about half and half between local, other, and the SS4A request. And then the way that we set this up is that the MPO will act as grant for the funds to the communities who are submitting projects so that they can pass through so that they can complete the projects, and we'll handle the administration of the project. So how that's broken down by community, we've broken it down into 3 general categories for projects. Trail underpasses, we have 2 of those. We have intersection safety and pedestrian enhancements. We have several of those. Those are most corridor level projects. Then we have 2 roundabouts. Here you can see each of those projects at the SS4A request amount, at the SS4A match, and then how much the SS4A program between those the request and match. All of these numbers, along with the construction timeline, have been sent to staff at all the communities that are submitting as part of the project. Those have been reviewed. So we're kind of finalizing the application now with that updated information. Looking at member community match elements for just the SS4A portion, you can see there at the table what the match amount is for each community based on the SS4A request. Additionally, at the executive committee meeting, we mentioned that Polk County Sheriff's Office is planning to submit an application. They had reached out. We had some conversations back and forth, and then we sat down with Supervisor McCoy, the administration, and the Sheriff's Department to talk about their grant application. They are seeking a little over $5 million of funds for about a $7 million total project. It includes 3 components: replacement of mobile radios. Component 2 includes training and dispatch equipment backup. And then the third piece, which is mostly a local funding piece, is the Polk County Sheriff's infrastructure for dispatching. They are seeking this under a separate application. After we met, discussed it, and it made more sense to keep their application separate and the MPO's application separate, and allow both organizations for individual application. Supervisor McCoy, any comment to add to that?
No, I think both of those applications will fare better separated, and it makes more sense, I think.
So at this time, we would recommend approval of the list of projects that would be included. Actually, it's back 2 slides. So it'd be this list here for inclusion in our application. And we'll get that finalized here in a few days and submitted on time. Any questions?
I have a question. A publication that I get from the League of American Bicyclists listed all of the awards from last year. And almost all the communities were already bike-friendly communities. And is there any tie to the awards or their points given because you are a bike-friendly community, have that designation?
No, there's nothing in the application criteria that would give you additional points for being a bike-friendly community. I think
It looked like that's where they were leaning.
That might be in their interest to.
What?
That might be in their interest to frame it that way.
You mean that the people that won the awards were bike-friendly communities? The publication.
I think if you look at the information that's come out about the priorities from the administration,
A different game this time than the first time, or
a little bit. There's slightly different priorities now that we've moved to a different administration for this program. The criteria hasn't necessarily changed dramatically, but different priorities are put on a cycle. So, any additional questions?
Any other discussion, questions?
approval?
I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Approval.
Second.
All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Next item on the agenda is the final recommended funding scenario. This is a report and vote. Dylan.
Thank you. Just to recap where we've been, since October, we have been on this course of reviewing and updating and refining our funding. When I say our funding, this is the SDG, Surface Transportation Block Grant, as well as TAP funding. So we've had a lot of work. There's been a committee that's been meeting regularly on it. I think this is the finish line here. So not to recap every single thing that we've done and show you everything, but I do want to highlight the final recommendation. So this would include advancing the start date from December to July. So here shortly we will start that process if this approves. Increasing the weight of safety scores. So we added more points for safety, and then we set a minimum threshold that a project would have to meet to be qualified for advancing through the process. We also set aside funding to do audits and safety countermeasures. So Marcus just mentioned that that's something that wasn't, or sorry, we did get partial funding for that in this last Safe Streets for All application. So we're just saying we're going to do that on our own. We're going to take a portion of our funding and fund both roadway safety audit and the countermeasures from that. And kind of the way to do that is we set aside a minimum 15% of the overall pot of money for safety. By adding that 15%, we take away a little bit from the existing categories. So that was a new change. And then the final component of this would be to hire a firm to help explore this idea of a funding swap a little bit more. So this would be allowing federal funds that the MPO receives to be swapped for local funds in certain instances, like we've seen in other metros. So this action would kind of approve all of this, setting course, updating funding guidelines, updating the schedule, doing the RFP for the Vision Zero or for the swap program and so forth. So I do want to thank the committee that's been working on this. We did have, just to recap, we had 3 city managers, we had 3 folks from our technical committee and 3 elected officials. And they met and combed through all this. It was nice to hear it from all their different angles. And I think this is the consensus we reached. So I do want to thank them for their time in this. Yeah, I think this is what we have for you for approval. I don't know if there's any other slides there. So that's what we have. I will note real quick, in case we forget to do it later, that on June 4th, so prior to our technical committee meeting, the next technical committee meeting, we will have a workshop primarily for the technical staff, their consultants and so forth, but anyone welcome to come and sit down and work with staff on how this new process will work, what the application looks like, and so forth, just so that there's a good understanding of that before we go live July 1st. So kudos to our staff. Mark's put a lot of time into developing a new application system for that. So looking forward to getting that going. If there's questions on this, happy to take. Otherwise, we're excited to get this done and implemented.
Any questions or comments? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Next item on the agenda is the report and legislative update. Gunner?
I'll sort of start on this one, and we have some bullets up here about the state legislative session. Maybe you guys are all tired of talking about state legislation. Obviously, there's the SUDAS bill that passed, the planning bill that we've discussed a few times that did not pass. There was a bike safety bill that made a splash for a while there that did not pass. I think the big headline for all of our jurisdictions, obviously, is the property tax reform. I've included the bullet summary from the partnership that they provided. I know you all, as staff, are doing your individual analyses because it's hitting you all individually differently. I would open the floor here to see if there's anything you want to share amongst yourselves. I think you're closer to this issue than we are as Houston. I kind of anticipated that we're done with this conversation, and that's just fine because we have a lot to talk about on the federal side. We haven't had much to talk about recently, other than the fact that the current surface transportation reauthorization bill was going to be expiring in September 30th. And we're excited to share some movement on that front with you here today. But just want to set level expectations that no one is anticipating that the new authorization bill will be done prior to September 30th, and everyone is operating under the assumption that we're going to be working under continued resolutions, at least one, potentially more. So with that being said, on Sunday evening, the House T&I committee released the bipartisan surface transportation authorization bill, which they have called the Build America 2050 Act. I've seen different acronyms on what the short term that is going to be. We'll see what sticks. Over the 5-year period of that bill would invest $474 billion. That's a little bit less than the current IAJA. Some of the broad themes of the new act, less competitive grants, more movement toward formula funding. There's consolidation of competitive grant programs to fewer programs. And also, as is a surprise to no one who's been following this, there's elimination of the climate-related grant programs. There's a lot here. The bill itself is 1,000 pages, and there's as many more pages of analysis floating around right now in our inboxes. So what we've done for you is pull together a few highlights of things that are directly relevant to the MPO. First, I want to compare where the dollars go between just a side-by-side comparison. And we're pulling from the different organizations that we work with and follow for best information. So this one comes from Transportation for America here. I'm not going to go into this in too much depth, but I'll pause here a little bit to let you see where those dollars flow. Actually, I'm going to make one comment on this. I've seen some people say that the new bill has more funding than the last, but the difference is what is guaranteed versus just what is authorized. Those numbers are a little bit different. One thing we'll highlight here, and this comes from the NARC, or National Association of Regional Councils, is that there's more money moving into formula programs. One that I'm going to talk about a little bit more here is the planning funds. That is going to increase. There's more on the next slide. But generally, there are increases in a lot of these programs, a lot of the formula programs, which is a positive for regional entities and local jurisdictions. This is a quote from an AMPO newsletter that we received shortly after. This kind of spoke to a few months ago. We talked about a marker bill that was introduced called the Basics Act, and the intent of the Basics Act was to kind of here are the priorities of these regional organizations, and a lot of that stuff made it in. So AMPO is feeling positive about this bill in that respect. And one of the headline takeaways here is that roughly 22% of the overall federal funding would go through formula competitive grants. That's the big plan. It's the shift that they were seeing. So to get a little into the weeds about PL funding, these are the federal funds that help us operate as an organization. One of the interesting things is that MPOs would be eligible to apply to become direct recipients as opposed to working through the Iowa DOT. And that obligation limits would increase from 1 to 2 years and also provide access to the fiscal management system. We don't know if pros or cons yet. That's something we need to explore. The DOT's been a good partner, but we're not just making any assumptions at this point, but this is in there for us to consider. Notably, federal share would increase from 90% from 80%, and also expand what we could use some of our planning funds for. The build grant survives. It's going to evolve again in name. It was Tiger, then it was Build, then it was Raise. Now we're back to Build, but now the whole bill is called Build. But the new name for this program is Local and Regional Project Assistance Program. The way it was described by the T&I committee had that full name and Build in parentheses. So we'll see what the name ends up being, but that's what we're reading. One interesting piece is that require biennial review. And so that might be a little bit of an asterisk as to whether or not that's a long-term program or whether it could go away after a couple of years. That's what we know as of right now. Lastly, it introduces a new program called the STAG program. And it's kind of similar to building the type of things that it would pay for, divided up into 3 pots: rural, urban, and regional local. We're in the last pot there, which gets half of the funding. Lastly, I'll mention SS4A survives and would be codified into Title 23 with guaranteed contact authority. That's a positive. As we see it, it does start at a lower annual funding level than what we have right now. It would start at $500 million compared to $1 billion, and then it would grow back to that $1 million annual by FY 2031 for a total of $3.7 billion over the year. Last thing, and we're excited to share this, is that you might recall the Iowa DOT put together a 4-part action plan to get to interstate designation for the bypass. The second of those 2 steps is a grandfather clause at the federal level that would allow heavy or overweight vehicles to operate in that corridor. DOT and MPO coordinated on language and shared it with our congressional delegation, and the delegation, thanks to them, got it into this bill. So it is there now. We'll probably have to be reintroduced with the next Congress as this process continues. We were pretty excited to see on page 229, line 14, that it wasn't back there. Lastly, staff here are getting ready for a DC partnership. I know a lot of you will be there, some of you will not. I know it coincides with the election calendar. Do want to highlight that Wednesday afternoon, MPO was helping the partnership coordinate a panel to talk about reauthorization. I think there was a lot more to talk about than we initially anticipated when we were setting this up. And also the keynote on Wednesday will be Senator Capito, who's the chair of the Committee of Public Works, who is located the reauthorization bill. So we'll see what they say from the Senate side. That's it. Covered a lot of ground. Bears repeating that the first bill that's introduced is never what has ended up being adopted. So all this is subject to change, but that's what we know at this time.
Questions or comments for Gunnar? If not, thanks, Gunnar. Next item, Director's Report, Dylan.
Thank you. I'd like to go through this, and Gunnar mentioned the strategic framework earlier with our work programs. I kind of follow the same thing with our update here and kind of focus on things that we didn't already cover. So when we talk about more of the governance and operations, I've got some exciting introductions to make. So we have 2 interns that just started earlier this week. So we have Claire Hamilton, ISU student, getting her master's in planning, and Colleen Kane, the Drake student, and she's going to be our data bike intern this year. So welcome them. You'll see their faces around the hall. I also have some graduations that we want to acknowledge. So Janet Slavic, who's our associate planner, has been working to get her master's degree and finally got that last week. So congratulations to her. She is now with us full time, which is great. Also want to acknowledge Allison Riley and Addison Williamson, completed the Lead DSM Community Leadership Program last week as well. So you haven't seen their faces because they always met on Thursday all day during these meetings. So oftentimes they weren't here, but now they're back. So we're back up. We got interns, we got full staff. We're all inches ahead here. things to highlight that's going to be coming up in the future meetings or things you'll see. I got to mention the 20D bylaws group has been meeting. So here in the next couple of months, they'll start reporting back what they're recommending, for the full group's consideration. Also, just with the lease update, you might notice this room looks a little naked. We took down all the pictures and had the room repainted a little bit as part of that lease update. So you'll see some improvements around the office here pretty soon. Moving on to that picture there, if you want to see that. Looking at the regional planning and federal excellence, we talked about the funding review program, so we're looking forward to rolling that out, getting that implemented. A couple things you'll see in June. June's going to be a busy month, just to give you a heads up. An active transportation plan and a freight study or freight plan are two things we've been working on internally for quite some time. Those are going to start to be brought forward to the committees in June. So you'll see more about that. Will be for approval, just be for starting to review them, see the draft chapters, language, but look forward to that next month. Going on to the third one, the strategic the enhanced partnerships and services. We've been doing a lot with DART and with other partners here recently. So back in April, we had a housing, transportation, and coordination event. We also helped sponsor the Housing Matters Conference and had a keynote speaker come in. And after that event, we had folks from our communities gather in this room to have a conversation with that keynote speaker. Yesterday was part of an event with Icon and Water Trails, kind of a retrospective and look at history and update of what's going on with Water Trails. Just a lot of coordination with our regional partners. Coming up here next Friday, there's a bus tour to kind of preview the DART route changes, but it's not going to be just about DART. It's also going to highlight all the things along the corridor. So all the transportation projects that are going on that we've been involved with, housing, economic development, and so forth. So if there's still seats on that bus, if you're curious, let us know if we can make sure you get the right information there. Looking forward to the next few months here. We'll have the Brent Slough contract. We talked about that project a little bit. There'll be a contract for that project coming forward to you. We'll have an annual report for you next month as well. And then I mentioned we have our data bike interns. So we'll have a data bike out in the field collecting information for all of you to use here. Finally, we talked a little bit about the Future Forward 35, so I won't go into that. But again, thanks to getting that out there. Gunnar mentioned the Grimes line a little bit. I can't recall where we were last time we updated this group, but the line has been filed for abandonment. Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation has put in the petition to pause that and ensure the rail banking negotiations. So that's where we're at now. There's been a lot of articles in the paper about what that means and how that's working, but that's something we're monitoring. We're actively involved in those conversations.
Can you address, I don't know if others have gotten this, but there's at least one law firm out there contacting residents about that they may be owed payment. And can you address what exactly that is?
I can
that plays into the
I can add another step. I might jump in here. There's kind of two things going on. So that is a little bit separate from the abandonment process that we're interested in. By virtue of how that order was created and the easements that were secured, the federal government can, through these legal actions, could compensate the landowners who originally had their land taken for the railroad. That wouldn't stop the abandonment from happening or the trail, if it comes to that, from being created. They're kind of two separate things, but they were both triggered by the abandonment being filed. Does that kind of summarize it?
High level is not a barrier to progress in terms of pursuing that if the region desires. It's really kind of a separate issue between landowners and the federal government. And it kind of pivots on the clarity of how the land was assembled initially.
It's a function of some old law that when the railroads were created and they had to take the land,
There's a Supreme Court it's like, say, 15, 20 years ago that is in motion. So we're monitoring it. We actually have staff at one of those meetings just so we understood what they were saying. But it's not really something that we're focusing our time or attention on. It's to know it's not the signal.
What's the next step in the process and the timeline for that?
I can speak to that. One other step that has happened since we updated you is that not only did the INHF on our behalf of the region say that we want rail bank, but the railroad responded that yes, we will engage. So basically, they accepted the offer to meet at the negotiation phase in a few months' time. We are now at the phase of research, and the big the big question that the whole negotiation will pivot on is the cleanness of the deeds and what those look like. So that work is underway. Thanks to Polk County, they've offered time from the recorder's office to do that research for us. The other major pieces that are occurring are going to be an appraisal. I know the INHF has an appraiser lined up, and the other piece will be a survey. That was going to come later. That hasn't started yet. So once we have all that data, start to have a better sense of what our negotiating position may or may not look like, we will be reconvening the corridor communities and being prepared to enter negotiations in a more formal way. There's a lot of information on this. I would invite anyone who wants to have conversations before then to feel free to reach out to staff. And if we don't know the answer, then INHF has been really great partners on this. So between us, we can.
Other things on this one. The third bullet there, I won't go into great detail on this, but I do want you to know we don't say yes to everything. We did have an opportunity come forward to us. Private sector organization wanted to work with us to develop a grant application and kind of take ownership of it, kind of like with water trials, where the grant will come to us. We went through our decision tree and talked internally, consulted with chair and some others, and decided that wasn't the best place for our time, and I don't even know if it would be possible for us to do it. So we did decline that. People have further questions, I can talk about that offline a little bit, to protect the anonymity of the group that came forward to us. And then finally, we've been working for quite a while on a multimodal economic impact study with DART. Next month, we will have that study for you to receive and file and see what it is after long last. So it's taken longer than we hoped, but next month we'll have that on the agenda for you as well. I think that's it for my previews and retrospectives. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I don't think we have anything else from staff or other items.
All right. Any announcements as a whole? If not, our next meeting is scheduled for 4 p.m. Thursday, June 18th, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.